Hello and welcome back to On to the Next Thing. I'm Michael, your host, and guess what? Surprise, surprise, we fucked up the Halloween episode. First of all, my computer just decided to not turn on again, and so I couldn't record using the software that I had in time, along with all the other shit that I had to do. And then my computer stayed broken because I couldn't get it fixed because I had to do a bunch of other crap, and I wasn't able to drop it off until basically it was Halloween. And once Halloween rolls around, I'm in Halloween mode, and I didn't. I'll be honest, I didn't set up anything big for Halloween. I was traveling, so I couldn't exactly have everyone come to my home studio and pull in some guests. But I promise, I'm gonna do better. I will be better. All right. That's in fact what the rest of this year is going to be about, being better. And also more spooky shit because we've got some updates on the mystery surrounding Copacabana. Oh my god. In other scary news, my cat is trying to claw my fucking nuts off in order to stay on me on the chair. So we'll get back to more of that soon. But first, we're going into some bird news. I'll be honest, not the most exciting bird news today, at least by looking at the fucking headlines. But we're gonna give it a go. Where are we going here? How about this? New York Times: a rare visitor to Long Island is driving birders cuckoo. Oh. A common cuckoo, a species native to Europe and Asia, made several recent appearances in Riverhead, New York. Birds have been spotted in a handful of places in the lower 48 states, experts said. This is by Neil Vigdor. A bogey on the 6th hole and par on the 7th. Roy William Gardner's scorecard from a recent round of golf on Long Island was nothing to write home about. Then why would you start your article with it? That's my question, Mr. Professional Writer. But there, on the front nine of the Vineyards Country Club in Riverhead, New York, came a most elusive birdie, trailing Mr. Gardner from fence post to fence post as he rode in a golf cart, a common cuckoo. Experts said the species, which is native to Europe and Asia, is believed to have visited only a handful of places in the lower 48 states since bird tracking sites began logging them around the early 2000s. Their rare cameos have become quite the spectacle, drawing birders across state lines, telephoto lenses, and binoculars in tow. At first, though, Mr. Gardner, 67, a real estate agent from East Quogue, New York, said that the bird was a mystery to him when he encountered it on the afternoon of October 23rd. I'm like, what the heck is it? He said in an interview on Friday. It's a fucking bird, dude. So Mr. Gardner began snapping photos of the bird with his phone, which he texted to his nephew, Chris Sayers, 27, a PhD student at University of California, Los Angeles, specializing in bird conservation biology and ecotoxicology. That's pretty dope. I kind of wish I was doing that, said Mr. Gardner. Except then he remembered that he was a wealthy real estate man, playing golf in a golf course on Long Island. That was a little bit of ad-lib, by the way. Quote, he says, hold, Mr. Gardner said. I'm like, waiting. God damn, this is a slow day at the New York Times. Okay, this sucks. His nephew received a bachelor's degree at Cornell, of fucking course. He said, drop me a pin. I guess that's what these birders do. He said, this bird is from Europe. They don't belong over here. Okay, great. And they also take over bird nests, from what I remember. They're like catbirds and stuff, where they're like nest pirates, or they drop their giant babies into a nest full of other birds, and then their baby outcompetes the other babies, and they go and they do that for a while. Blah, blah, blah. The genetic makeup of birds gives them a propensity to travel in certain directions as they know how far they need to go. But there are outliers, Professor Prum said. Oh, by the way, they interviewed this guy named Richard O. Prum. I actually went myself and chased a bird that was in Rhode Island a few years ago. He said, oh wait, hang on. He said that cuckoos can fly without stopping for 8 to 10 days. And then he was quoted saying that he chased a bird for 8 to 10 days in Rhode Island. Cool. I guess you can kind of do whatever with invasive birds, but still, a little bit crazy. I don't actually know how you could chase anything for 8 to 10 days in Rhode Island. It's not a big state. It's in fact the smallest state, for those of you outside of the United States or poor at geography. So I don't really know what this guy's talking about. Okay. It seems like people are really excited about this cuckoo bird, but it's literally called the common cuckoo. So I guess it's just because it came over from Europe. And because we have catbirds over here, that's kind of like our cuckoo. But oh no, we have cowbirds. Catbirds are the ones that sound like a cat. Cowbirds are the big fat ones that do the thing that cuckoos do, but they're over here. So I guess that's the idea. Yep, that's it. It's just they saw a bird in a golf course. All right, great start to the bird news. What else do we have? This one looked a little better. This is from the Berkshire Eagle. Subscribe now. Nope. Never allow. Nope. All right. Berkshire Eagle is paywalled. Excelente. I guess we're going to go to this last one from Florida Today. Ooh, also trying to get me to pay for stuff. Not going to do that. Environment from Florida Today. Snowbirds, the feathered kind, are already flocking to Florida. This is from Jim Waymer at Florida Today. Ooh, trying to show me videos. If you've been thinking you've been hearing a lot of chirping lately, you're not mistaken. The snowbirds are arriving. The feathered kind, that is, not the sunburned ones. They come later. Every fall, billions of birds leave their summer homes in the north and make their way to the warmer climes of the south, with millions crossing over and stopping in Brevard County. One neat way to see what birds are on their way is Birdcast, a website that tracks bird migration. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency funded the original Birdcast project in 1999, with public operation beginning in 2000. Birdcast generates a real-time map that on October 8th showed a record 1.25 billion birds in flight. It includes a bird migration dashboard where you can search by county to see bird migration forecasts in your area. Coupled with advanced computing power, ornithologists can use the radar data to generate detailed maps of bird movements in the atmosphere. How many birds are migrating over Brevard? I don't know where Brevard County is. I guess it's in Florida, but I guess it's just for this particular county. On October 23rd, it estimated more than 784,000 birds crossed Brevard. According to the site, expected nocturnal migrants over Brevard included the palm warbler of the eastern phoebe, northern house wren, Cape May warbler, yellow-rumped warbler, yellow-bellied sapsucker, Swainson's thrush, bay-breasted warbler, and the Savannah sparrow. Here are some of the other standouts you're likely to see here as the weather cools: palm warbler, white pelicans, northern gannet, piping plover, I've heard of that one, American robin, American kestrel, and share this. Okay, article's over. I didn't want to read the details about all those birds because that's something you can search up for yourself. But if there's one more interesting piece of information we got from this article is that there's a database for bird migration and you can see which birds are in your area at which time. And other than that, the main bird news of the week seems to be that birds are migrating, which is, I guess, technically news. Okay, so next thing I want to go to is some updates. All right. Been working on my research. I got over my breakdown from last time. So I went in and I did a little bit more of a deep dive on the Copacabana region, or really not the region, because the region mostly just talks about the, the tourism and the history attached to the Copacabana, or rather our Virgin of Copacabana Basilica. Or, it's the Basilica of the Virgin, or something like that. Instead, I used some super cool, super sophisticated searching tactics, such as adding the phrase before : 2023 to remove the constant AI tourism ad websites that pop up whenever you search up Copacabana and gives you like 1 million hits. And when you search for before 2023, when people were just making articles out of nothing, you really only get about 7 pages of hits about, Copacabana, and it's mostly a lot of repeats. And it gets narrowed down even further when you go to the next derivative of it, which is what I found when I was doing my research. So the Copacabana region, as we sort of found out last time, may or may not be related to the fertility god Kotakawana. Yes, Kotakawana, which etymologically either means the name of the fertility god that's of the Andean region, or it just means view of the lake. And so basically things either get way more interesting or way more boring. Now, to be fair, to be certain, the only research articles that I could find using good old Google Scholar basically have nothing of any more importance about it. But they say that the etymology related to the Kotakawana, the Andean god of fertility, is false. However, others have also been saying that that same word means view of the lake. And so it certainly can probably mean both things, but I don't know why they particularly would say that it's a false derivation of that word. Other sources that I get into that are a little bit less reliable get a little bit weirder. You get ones from Culture Trip, which had a lot of more recent AI kind of written articles, ChatGPT. But it has it mentions it a little bit in depth. It says in its paragraph Bolivian background. It says the name Kotakawana was used by the indigenous Aymara people of the Altiplano, High Plains, for centuries. Before eventually being adopted by the Spanish, who used it for a town they built on Lake Titicaca. And so that's about it from there. Then it goes into the story that I read like 7 different times about an indigenous man who basically created a statue of the Virgin of Copacabana. Even though I guess it was like, they call it Copacabana, but I still don't really know why it's called Copacabana. But once again, we aren't going to get into that cycle again. The guy's name is Tito, by the way. But yeah, kind of similar things coming in from other websites. On hiplatina.com, they have a brief paragraph here. Goto. Having trouble with my keyboard, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so basically it says there are 2 theories on how the town got its name, and one, like I said, is that it's the Aymara phrase for view of the lake, which is the 2 words, Kota and Kahuana. And then the other hypothesis is that it comes from Kotakawana, a god of fertility. And basically what's interesting about it is that according to both this source and kind of a more in-depth source that's from a Catholic website, but it's kind of a little bit more in-depth about the shrine and the origins of the shrine. And it essentially says that that originally the area had temples dedicated to Kotakawana and like the other nature spirits in the area around Lake Titicaca. And it says that it was thought that the name originates from the name Kotakawana. And they say, of course, no sources cited, because none of these websites actually have sources cited, that this theory was backed up by the unearthing of a number of shrines in the area dedicated to the deity. And they said this name was used by the indigenous people of the Altiplano for many centuries before being adopted by the Spaniards for the town we know today. And essentially, the whole area is sacred to both the indigenous people and the original indigenous animist style religions and the Catholics. And that's partially because, according to this, they essentially built the basilica on top of the old Inca temple, which I think is a little bit messed up. And but I mean, I guess it's sort of like balanced out, because now the derived name of the Kotakawana is essentially not only spread from Bolivia over to Brazil, but also over to a chain of hotels, a famous song, and various other clubs that I have seen that are also called, either the Copacabana Club or the Copacabana. And so this, mostly what this tells me is that Copacabana is in fact spreading as a concept. It is a linguistic virus that is spread to the club scene of the east coast of the United States. But probably one of the slightly more disturbing tidbits about it comes from Peru Inside Out, which admittedly looks like just kind of some sort of shady tourism service in Bolivia. But this is basically what it says about this. Once again, no sources, so take this with a grain of salt. Copacabana is the main Bolivian town on the shore of Lake Titicaca. Copacabana sits at 3,810 meters above sea level on the bay between Mount Calvario and Mount Nino Calvario, which I believe means Calvario Mountain and little boy Calvario Mountain. I guess. The population is approximately 6,000. Two main civilizations in the Titicaca region before the Inca Empire were the Tiwanaku and the Aymara. The name of Copacabana is derived from the Aymara Kotakawana, meaning view of the lake. Except it definitely isn't, because it seemed like, according to the other more reputable websites, it was Kotakawana, which is two words. Another interpretation says Kotakawana was the god of the fertility in ancient Andean mythology and still resides in Lake Titicaca. Now, none of the other sources that I've said sees that. And I did the pre-2023 search for for the name of the supposed fertility deity, Kotakawana. And I looked through, and it's pretty much all based on, the possibly untrue or, kind of erroneous etymological connection where Copacabana is derived from the name of this god. That I'm also not 100% sure exists in the culture, because I've been trying to look into research related to it, but I'm not finding all that much, which tells me that I need to do more research. But none of the sources, other than this one, says that Kotakawana, the god, still resides in Lake Titicaca. And of course, there is no follow-up that possibly tells us what that means. Whether it is because it's alive and it's a being that lives in the fucking lake, which feels a little bit more frightening than just like, it's honestly, it's more frightening than just, they built the church on top of the temple, and now everything around it is called Copacabana. And additionally, there is also an anecdote where basically they had tried to dedicate it to a different this fucking cat, come on. They tried to dedicate it to a different saint, and then all the crops withered. But then the agriculture came back and was okay when they rededicated it to, the so-called Virgin of Copacabana. And all of this together, it's not making a super clear picture, either in the real world or the metaphysical world or the mythological world, because I'm not really finding even any real sources on this. But in my headcanon, we're going that the fertility god Kotakawana still lives in the lake, and now is having its name, even though maybe the rites and rituals surrounding it have been lost. It's the influence of its name now resides in every corner of the Western Hemisphere. Wherever there's dancing and tropical vibes and dancing around and clubs and fucking and everything else, that's where Kotakawana, aka Copacabana, lives. And I'm hoping I can find more research on it, because all of it is just, it's either the most mundane, stupid thing ever, or it's a or it's a terrible tale of colonialism and Catholic persecution of other religions, or it's the surprising tale of the comeback of a nearly forgotten Incan god that has managed to kind of like worm its way into a bunch of different cultural institutions, even in this country, 1,000 miles away, more than 1,000. How far is Bolivia? How far is Bolivia? Hey, Google. How far is Bolivia? How far is it? AI overview says 3,100 to 4,000 miles by air. That sounds right. So thousands of miles away in freaking New York City, they have a club called Copacabana. And by the way, I was just over in Niagara Falls in Canada, and they had a club called Copacabana Club as well. And it is possibly one of the worst clubs I had ever seen. They were playing a slowed down version, like a Lana Del Rey cover of the song Mad World, which is not what I think of as a fun club song. And that did not help with the eerie vibes that I now get from anything called Copacabana. Because that was fucking strange. No one in the club, Club Copacabana, playing fucking Mad World out of the speakers in 50-degree weather. Just silent streets because it's a casino town in the off season. In fact, I'm probably going to do a more in-depth review of Niagara Falls, Canada side, in the next episode, because that place is it's a fucking trip, man. It's a fucking trip. But anyway, since we're about halfway through, I think that that wraps up pretty much everything I have about this. But OTNT will be investigating further, as much as possible. Maybe I'll actually read a book about it. Wouldn't that be something? Me doing real research into a real mystery that I don't think anyone else could remotely give a fuck about. Cat, if you talk into the microphone one more time, I swear to God, it's over for you. All right? You're going back to the cat farm where I got you. The cat farm. Anyway, not a lot of books right now. I finally finished that laborious Western philosophy book. And basically the guy spent the last 10 pages of bitching about how Karl Marx is a bad philosopher, which is like, okay, maybe, dude, but you're British, and also you're dead. So, sorry, Dr. Professor Anthony Flew. But beyond that, I've started reading Fairy Tale. I haven't gotten very far. It's a book. It's a Stephen King book with a kid in it. So we'll have to see how well he handles writing a young character. He's done it before, but hopefully this is set. I believe it's set still in like the 1980s or 90s or something. So Stephen King still might be able to know how kids act and talk during that decade. So who knows? It might actually be pretty good. I haven't heard great things about it, but what are you gonna do? Everyone's got their haters. So we'll get into that further along. As far as movies, TV shows. Been watching a lot of TV. Been doubling up on Sopranos. Been trying to do about at least 1 to 2 episodes a night. So now that puts me in early season 4, and shit's gotten dark. This was like you don't go and watch the mob show to get like a lighthearted sitcom. Although sometimes, especially in season 1, it kind of felt just like a kind of a goofy dramedy at times, and then mixed in with occasional horrible violence. But shit gets way more. Shit gets way darker and way more gruesome, especially starting in season 3. Like, woof, it really kind of pulls you into like, the show is not going to a good place. Not that that's a spoiler or anything, even though I technically know that everyone dies, or I know everyone who dies. I don't know that everyone dies, but yeah, things not looking good. But goddamn, is the show engaging? Like it keeps getting better and better. It's kind of like it almost feels like a similar arc to Breaking Bad, except you know that the main protagonist is a bad dude the whole time. So that part of it does not connect to Breaking Bad whatsoever. But the increase in quality as the show goes on, with the show already being good at the start, definitely parallels of Breaking Bad. What else have I been watching? Smiling Friends. That's a good one. It's one of those Adult Swim shows. Weird, interesting cartoonists, weird, interesting voice actors. It's got Michael Cusack. Is that the guy? It might be that. I feel like there's another Cusack who's like a pretty famous actor as well. John Cusack? Ooh, all right, hang on. John Cusack. Yep, John Cusack is an American actor. Oh, he's that guy. So he's the guy in 2012. He's the guy who plays like a loser dad. He kind of plays like a loser dad guy in a lot of things. He's kind of like he is like the 100% like the face that I think of for an actor playing like a shitty father who's got to redeem himself for being shitty. Specifically because of his work in 2012. Now, you have John Cusack, but I believe the other voice actor's name is Michael Cusack. And then, yeah, this little weird British dude. Another weird British guy. And then Zachary Hadel is the other voice. And then I believe there's another writer who plays like some of the other characters. But it's like with a lot of those Adult Swim shows, it's basically 2 or 3 people who just do all of the freaking voices, or who do like a majority of the voices for the show. And it's pretty impressive, even though each episode is only like 12 minutes long. So it really is more like just short form TV, but it's a lot of fun, and people really like it. I think it kind of rides the line that a lot of Adult Swim shows tend to ride, where it's like between being like really serious and dark and then being funny. I think that Smiling Friends tends to keep things a little bit more in the funny balance, rather than what happens with some shows. Like, for example, I also watch some more Aqua Teen Hunger Force at times, but sometimes it just gets like, it's like funny and it's like I get the jokes, but like the general plot going on just becomes so fucking miserable that it's like, man, I don't know, dude. Like, it's just there's only so much fucking bullying and horrendous gore I can look at before I'm like, all right, dude. Like, when give me some more jokes. Feed me some more funny. Okay, I know that over the top gore is pretty funny, especially when it's in a shocking situation. But when the whole thing is horrible stuff happening, it's like, all right, cool. I know that there's other shows like that. Like, I think Moral Oral is another one where it gets into really dark themes while trying to also still be funny. But Smiling Friends definitely does that. But the show's so fast paced that you don't dwell in the sadness long enough to get actually depressed about anything, because it just moves so quick. Anyway, that's a good one. As far as films I've been watching lately, I've watched I watched The Black Phone a while ago. That's different though. I watched Flow, which was a award-winning animated movie, originally filmed in Latvia. I recommend watching it. It's a fun and sad little story, and I mean, it's not like sad, and that once again, it's not like steeped in misery, but it's like, it's sad to see unfortunate things happen to animals. If you have a heart, especially a little kitty cat, little Latvian kitty cat. One thing I will mention about this show is that it had a fucking shitload of studios behind it, which I guess makes sense for like an animated production of this quality that's a full-length feature film that's also like on an independent budget. Because when you start the movie, there's like two and a half straight minutes of just studio names that as an uncultured American grease pig, I've never heard of any of these studios before. But yeah, it was a collaboration between a bunch of different countries, a bunch of animators and things like that. And it's it's a good story. It might make you cry a little bit, but mostly it'll just make you feel like pretty good, and also you'll appreciate the animation. So yeah, watch that. Also watched The Naked Gun, which is it's a Paramount movie, but occasionally Paramount just kind of lets people do shit, and finally just lets people make money for them. Because Paramount has issues with that. That's why they're switching to becoming the fucking UFC platform. And the little non-plot spoiler, UFC does make a fucking it does make an appearance. It has its role in the movie The Naked Gun, and it's a little bit bizarre and definitely just a way to advertise that UFC is going to be on Paramount Plus or whatever the fuck. But it doesn't take away from the movie, which is good, because it almost does, because the UFC people are obnoxious and they really try and just push their shit, because they're constantly just trying to sell you dudes with brain damage giving each other more brain damage, which is fine. Once again, love the violence, but pay-per-views cost like $90, and it's I don't know. I don't trust those guys. But they're in the movie, but that doesn't hurt the movie at all, because it's very well written, and it's probably the most effort I've seen Liam Neeson do in acting basically since the first Taken. Like I really hope that he doesn't try and go back and keep doing a bunch of other like straight face action movies anymore. Because I really think he's kind of like, that's just not who he is. In fact, I'd prefer if he just tries to. I wouldn't mind if he just tries to do like a Leslie Nielsen role for basically the rest of his career, where he's like the deadpan comedy guy, because he's pretty good at it. It seems like he knows how to make kind of a parody of himself and those types of characters, and you kind of forget that he used to be like a good serious actor before he fell into this like major acting roles, like major action acting roles, when he was like 50. And so now as an old man, he has to be an old man action star without ever getting to really be a young man action star. Like already in Star Wars, he was already old as fuck back then. Like, he was already in, like, his 40s. That's why he played the old man mentor, Qui-Gon Jinn. And now he's what? He's, like, 70 almost? Rumored to be incontinent, but that might have been a bit that I saw somewhere. But I think that he might have that. And so it's like, you really shouldn't be doing stunts anymore. And it shows, because in all of his lower budget movies and on all the Taken sequels, it's just like, anytime he has to do any sort of stunt, it's just like a million cuts to just get him, like, for example, over a fence or into a car or through a 10-second fist fight, But in this one, it's played for laughs, so he's like, they don't have to cut a bunch to show him doing anything, because it's all supposed to be goofy anyway. And then some of it's just like ridiculous CGI shit, which looks intentionally goofy. And none of that really matters, because he plays the deadpan comedy role really well, and it's just an absurd enough movie where it works, and it kind of captures the spirit of the original, even though I never seen the original all the way through. But if you know anything about The Naked Gun, you know kind of what the spirit of the movie is. It's just bit after bit after bit after wordplay after slapstick. It's like Monty Python style stuff. It made me think kind of John Cleese, although I don't know if he's He might have been involved in the original The Naked Gun. Hang on. Let me see. I might be totally making an ass of myself right now. How about let's do that. This is media franchise. Zucker. Maybe a Zucker guy. Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker. What is this? Films. Naked Gun. Television series, Police Squad, in color. So I guess it was originally kind of a show? Or was it a movie? Oh, that's crazy. It was a 1-season show, and then it spawned a bunch of movies. That's wild. Police Squad. And then it's Naked Gun in 1988. So yeah, nothing to do with the Brits. So nothing to do with John Cleese. It's all, I guess, David Zucker and, like, Jerry Zucker? Yeah, the Zucker brothers. I've heard of the Zucker brothers. This is really just, once again, just exposing my film ignorance every single episode. This is brutal. It's fucking brutal. But yeah, relatively successful, cult classic type of stuff. And then Akiva Schaffer, originally from the Lonely Island comedy group, wrote and directed the remake, and the remake is what I watched, and I have to recommend it. I was really kind of wanted to not like it. Like, I was kind of hoping that it sucked because the ads that they had for it were annoying, where they were like, comedy is finally back, and it's fucking Liam Neeson, and it's like, come on, how funny can Liam Neeson be? Turns out pretty funny. He went from getting called out for talking about how he almost committed a hate crime back in the 1980s or whatever, to, kind of just being like a bit of a laughingstock because his action movies weren't doing very well, to, potentially having to come back in action comedies, which, that's all I can really hope for him, because he's a pretty decent actor, and it kind of sucks if you're fucking old and then having to try and do a bunch of stunts in straight-faced action movies where you play like the old guy coming back to finish the job that the young man can't do, because that's some Steven Seagal shit, unfortunately. Like, that's what Steven Seagal does, just straight face, like, I may be obese and 73 years old, but I can still kick ass. But he doesn't even kick ass, he just like sits around and maybe like shoots a guy or something. And like pretends that his fucking Akiva shit is like, oh, Akiva's the name of the director. What's the thing that Steven Seagal does? Aikido, right? Yeah, he does his Aikido shit and pretends that works, and then has a bunch of like dying former WWE wrestlers come in and like co-star and like pretend to fight him. And yeah, that's his arena. You don't want Liam Neeson doing that. He used to be considered a quality dramatic actor, and hopefully he can kind of continue on in this sort of vein, because I honestly really enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, he's no Leslie Nielsen, but that's kind of already the film addresses that immediately. So I mean, they're quick. They're quick on their feet, and luckily the fucking leech lizard executives at Paramount Pictures stayed the fuck out of the way of the writers on this one. Probably because they had already shit canned 3 other versions of this movie. I did a little deep dive on it, and one of the original creators, I don't remember if it was David Zucker or Jerry Zucker, they were trying to make a 4th one with Leslie Nielsen before he died. But the Paramount kept cutting shit, and they kept trying to cut Leslie Nielsen out of the fucking movie. And then the writers said, like, all right, fuck this, I'm not doing it. And so it got shit canned for like a decade, until finally they got another group of writers together and then were smart enough to kind of stay out of their way so they could actually make a fucking movie. So yeah, I guess comedy is back. Paramount Pictures. They still got to shill their UFC garbage by bringing out old UFC people to pretend to be young new fighters. So it was like It was honestly kind of like a little bit of unintentional comedy because they have two fighters who are like, they're famous, so they would get, visual recognition from any UFC fans watching the Naked Gun, I guess, which is, not, it's not too small of a Venn diagram, but like, not a crazy large audience, I would think, but maybe I'm wrong. Because yeah, they had former interim champion Justin Gaethje pretending to fight the former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman, who was also in Black Panther, and it's just funny because they both look like so out of shape, like they were just not. Or from what I remember, they both kind of look. They might just be just because they're old now, but they definitely didn't get into like full fighting like super weight cut thing, and so they're just kind of two guys fight and pretending to like box in their walking weight, and so they both just look like just 240-pound dad bods swinging it around in the octagon, and so it's like. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm glad that they didn't make them try and like do a fucking weight cut for this movie, but it adds another layer to it. And then Liam Neeson may or may not beat up some people associated with the UFC, so it all ends up being in fun. Being in fun, yeah, it played for laughs, being in fun, whatever. Pamela Anderson is also in it, I believe. Yeah, Pamela Anderson. Yep, that's her. And yeah, overall good movie. I can't, I couldn't find all that many flaws in it. It gets a little bit slow in the third act where you're just like, all right, I know, I get it. I get the jokes. I get the slapstick stuff. I get the wordplay. But it ends strong, and it starts strong, and it goes pretty strong through the middle, and then it ends strong. So that's more than a lot of modern comedies can say. Or actually, there aren't even really that many pure comedy movies made anymore like that. Normally, they're kind of like action comedies that try and be kind of like too smart and self-aware for their own good. But this is so self-aware that it's absurd, and just tries to play on the absurdity, kind of like how the old Police Squad franchise did. So. Hey, maybe sometimes Hollywood doesn't put out stuff that's shit. Like even a broken clock like Paramount can, be right once a day, because it hits 12, and it's like it's always, or no, not because it hits 12. What the fuck? How am I mixing up? I'm screwing up my freaking clock metaphor here. It's a broken clock. It's right twice a day because you get the one time in the AM and one time in the PM, and it's going to intersect with the real time at some point, right? Over explained it, fuck you, whatever. It's a good movie, go watch it. It's got Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson in it, and then a bunch of other people who just kind of show up sometimes. It's good stuff. All right, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Talk about the Copacabana thing. I'll link some of my research articles, I guess, in there, even though it's barely even research. But yeah, I'll link some of that. Make sure to follow social media at OTNT Podcast on Instagram, on Blue Sky, on Mastodon, on Instagram, on YouTube. Yeah, all of those. Make sure you follow on all of those because I need it, or we need it. We at the On to the Next Thing Corporation need this. Viewers like you and all that. Yeah. This is a bit of a short episode, looks like, but we're going to have more stuff coming soon. It's going to be fun. I'm going to get back on track, which is what I say every single week, but this was actually out of my control. Computer was legitimately broken. It was not. What the fuck? I hope that was caught on the microphone because that sounded insane. Just chattering, berserk, possessed animal. Whatever. That's about that. More episodes coming soon. We're going to be back to weekly uploads. It's going to be a good time. I'm going to be watching more movies. I'm going to be reading Fairy Tale. I'll read some passages because Stephen King loves putting crazy-ass passages in his books. And if I find anything else in my research project related to the entity known as Copacabana or Kotakawana or the Copacabana, hottest spot north of Havana, then I'll let you know in future episodes. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.